I think you've misunderstood. Nathan will be handling the financial direction of the expansion project. My father's words hung in the air between us, seeming to distort the familiar surroundings of his corner office into something alien and unrecognizable. The Milwaukee skyline beyond the window blurred as my vision narrowed, focusing entirely on his impassive face. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Nathan? Nathan hasn't worked a day in the past 3 years. He doesn't even have a background in finance, I said, my voice unnaturally calm despite the earthquake happening inside me. Dad shuffled papers on his desk, avoiding my eyes. He's been going through a rough patch since his divorce. This is exactly what he needs to get back on his feet. Besides, he has an MBA. An MBA he never used, and I just spent 18 months securing a $10 million investment that saved this company. The tremor finally broke through in my voice, betraying the hurt and rage building inside me. Jennifer, that's enough. He used my full name, something he only did when he was shutting down a conversation. This is a family business, and sometimes family needs take priority over business decisions. Nathan needs this position. You already have a role here. The decision is final. I walked out of Taylor Precision Manufacturing in a daze. The company my grandfather had built from nothing. The company I'd just saved from bankruptcy with 18 months of non-stop work. The $10 million investment from Cartwright Industries had been my personal triumph, the culmination of countless presentations, late nights revising business plans, and high-stakes meetings where I'd put my entire reputation on the line. And my reward? Watching my father hand the financial directorship to my brother, who showed up to family dinners in wrinkled shirts, reeking of last night's whiskey and failure. The spring air felt too sharp in my lungs as I made my way across the parking lot to my sensible sedan. Milwaukee's industrial district stretched around me, familiar as my own reflection. I'd grown up in these buildings, spending summers as a teenager learning every aspect of our precision tool manufacturing business. Unlike Nathan, who'd always treated the family business as a fallback, a safety net he would never need, I called my best friend Vanessa the moment I pulled out of the parking lot. He did what? Vanessa's outrage was immediate and validating. Gave Nathan financial control of the expansion, after all the work I did to secure the investment. I navigated through the afternoon traffic on autopilot, muscle memory guiding me while my mind spun in disbelieving circles. That's insane, Jen. Nathan can barely manage his own checking account. Exactly what I said. So, what are you going to do? Her question hung between us as I stopped at a red light. What was I going to do? I was 32 years old, had an MBA from Northwestern, had spent the last 8 years pouring everything into Taylor Precision. My whole identity was wrapped up in that company. Every relationship I'd had in the past 5 years had fallen apart because I'd prioritized the business. I'd canceled vacations, missed friends' weddings, put off starting my own family, all for Taylor Precision. I don't know, I answered honestly. I just don't know. That night, I sat in my downtown apartment surrounded by industry reports and financial projections, the remnants of my investment campaign. Photos of 3 generations of Taylors hung on my walls, the manufacturing floor serving as backdrop to family milestones. In each one, my father's hand rested on Nathan's shoulder, while I stood slightly apart, always the responsible one, the reliable one, but never the favorite. My mother would have understood. Before cancer took her 5 years ago, she'd been my advocate, recognizing my passion for the business in a way my father never had. Your father sees too much of himself in Nathan, she'd once told me. All the potential, all the charm. He's blind to the fact that you're the one who inherited his work ethic, not Nathan. I poured myself a glass of wine and stared at my phone. The rational move would be to swallow my pride, go back tomorrow, and make the best of the situation. Keep Nathan from driving the company into the ground. Continue to be the responsible one. But a new, unfamiliar voice whispered inside me, "What if you didn't?" The thought was terrifying and exhilarating. I opened my laptop and pulled up an email I'd received 3 months ago from Marcus Patterson, the CEO of a manufacturing technology startup in Seattle. We'd met at an industry conference where I'd given a presentation on modernizing legacy manufacturing businesses. He'd been impressed, offering me a position on the spot. I'd declined, politely explaining my commitment to my family business. "The offer stands," he'd written in his follow-up. "Someone with your vision and drive is exactly what we need. Your family is lucky to have you." I typed a response before I could talk myself out of it. "Marcus, circumstances have changed. Is that position still available? I'd like to discuss details at your convenience." My finger hovered over the send button for a full minute before I finally pressed it. Then I opened another tab and started looking at apartments in Seattle. The next morning, I arrived at Taylor Precision early, as I had nearly every day for the past 8 years. The familiar hum of machinery greeted me as I walked through the production floor, nodding to employees who'd watched me grow up. I'd earned their respect through consistent hard work, unlike Nathan, who they rarely saw. "Morning, Ms. Taylor," called Frank, our longest-serving floor manager. "Heard the good news about the investment. Seems like we owe you a debt of gratitude." I forced a smile. "Just doing my part for the family business, Frank. And I hear Mr. Nathan is coming back to work with us." His tone was carefully neutral, but his raised eyebrows spoke volumes. "That's right," I confirmed, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "He'll be overseeing the financial aspects of the expansion." Frank's face remained impassive, but the slight tightening around his eyes told me everything I needed to know about how that news was being received on the floor. In my office, I found a text from my father. "Meeting with Nathan at 10 to discuss transition. Your presence required." No, please. No acknowledgement of how this might feel for me. Just an expectation that I would fall in line as always. I spent the next hour organizing my files, downloading important documents to my personal drive, and clearing personal items from my desk. Not enough to raise suspicions, but enough to make a quick exit possible if needed. By 9:55, I was walking toward the conference room, back straight, face composed. Nathan arrived 15 minutes late, wearing a suit that probably cost more than what most of our employees made in a month. His handsome face, so similar to our father's in his prime, looked slightly puffy from too many late nights, but he flashed his trademark charming smile as he strolled in. "Sorry I'm late," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Traffic was brutal coming in from Brookfield." "Some of us plan ahead for traffic," I remarked coolly. "Some of us don't get our panties in a twist over a few minutes," he shot back with a smirk. Dad cleared his throat. "Let's focus on business, shall we? Jennifer, I need you to bring Nathan up to speed on the Cartwright investment and the financial projections for the expansion." For the next hour, I walked through the complex details of the deal I'd structured, explaining how the phased investment would allow us to upgrade our equipment, expand our production capacity, and move into new markets. Nathan nodded occasionally, checking his phone under the table. "So where's the money now?" he interrupted as I was explaining our debt servicing strategy. "The first installment of $3 million was deposited yesterday into our business development account," I explained. "We'll receive the next installment when we meet the first phase production targets." "And who has access to that account?" Nathan asked, suddenly more engaged. "Currently, Dad and I are the only signatories," I replied, watching his expression carefully. "That'll need to change," Dad interjected. "Nathan will need full access as financial director." I felt cold dread pool in my stomach. "I think we should discuss proper controls and oversight before—" "Jennifer," my father cut me off. "I've been running this company for 30 years. I think I understand proper financial controls." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. And it was nearly bankrupt before I secured this investment, I shot back, unable to contain myself. The room fell silent. My father's face hardened while Nathan leaned back in his chair with a satisfied smirk, enjoying the confrontation. I think we're done for today, Dad finally said. Nathan, we'll meet again tomorrow to continue the transition. Jennifer, I'd like to see you in my office. In his office, my father didn't ask me to sit. Your attitude is unacceptable. Nathan is your brother, and regardless of your personal feelings, he deserves your respect and cooperation. What about my respect, Dad? I've given everything to this company. I saved it from your mismanagement, and this is how you repay me? His face flushed with anger. Watch yourself, Jennifer. You may have brought in this investment, but I'm still the CEO, and I will not tolerate this kind of insubordination, family or not. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. Family or not? That's always been the question, hasn't it? Nathan gets endless chances, endless forgiveness. I get expectations and criticism. That's not fair. No, it's not fair. I agreed. None of this is fair. I walked out, closing the door quietly behind me, which I knew would irritate him more than if I'd slammed it. Back in my office, I found an email from Marcus Patterson waiting for me. Jen, thrilled to hear from you. Position is absolutely still available. Can we set up a video call for tomorrow to discuss details? Looking forward to potentially welcoming you to the team. I stared at the message for a long moment, then looked around my office at the photos and awards accumulated over years of dedicated service to Taylor Precision. Outside my window, I could see the manufacturing floor where I'd grown up, the business my grandfather had built, the legacy I'd fought to preserve. And in that moment, I made my decision. I scheduled the call with Marcus for 7 a.m. the next day, before I was due at the office. Then I began methodically organizing my files, ensuring that anyone who took over my position would be able to continue my projects without disruption. It wasn't the company's fault that my father and brother were who they were. That evening, I declined Vanessa's invitation for drinks, needing time alone to process what I was considering. Instead, I drove out to Lake Michigan, finding a quiet spot along the shore where I used to come with my mother when big decisions loomed. The water stretched before me, vast and unforgiving yet somehow comforting in its constancy. My mother would have understood what I was feeling, the impossible position I was in. She had always encouraged me to define my own path, even as she supported my involvement in the family business. The company is important, Jen, she'd told me once, but it's not everything. Don't let it become your whole world. Had I listened? Or had I allowed Taylor Precision to consume me, to define me so completely that I couldn't imagine existence without it? My phone rang, displaying Nathan's name. I almost declined the call, but curiosity won out. What do you want, Nathan? Geez, nice greeting, he replied, the sound of a sports bar evident in the background. Just wanted to clear the air after today. No hard feelings, right? This arrangement can work for both of us. How exactly does this work for me? I asked, incredulously. Look, you're great at the day-to-day operations stuff. I'm better with the big picture, the relationships. We complement each other. You haven't been involved in the business for years, Nathan. You have no relationships to speak of in this industry. He laughed, the sound grating against my nerves. That's where you're wrong, sis. Dad and I have been talking about this for months. Why do you think Cartwright finally agreed to the investment? The implication hit me like a physical blow. What are you talking about? Bill Cartwright and Dad go way back. I had dinner with them back in January. Helped smooth the way for your little presentation? You're welcome, by the way. My mind raced back to the mysterious change in Cartwright's demeanor during our final negotiations. I'd attributed it to my comprehensive business plan, my passion for the company's future. Had it all been Nathan and my father pulling strings behind my back? You're lying, I said, but doubt had already taken root. Believe what you want. See? You tomorrow, financial director's assistant. He hung up with a chuckle. I sat in my car until the lake disappeared into darkness, the lights of Milwaukee twinkling in the distance. If what Nathan said was true, and his smugness suggested it might be, my greatest professional achievement had been at least partially engineered by my father and brother. The thought made me physically ill. By the time I arrived home, my decision was made. The next morning, I woke before dawn and dressed carefully in my most professional outfit. At 7 a.m. sharp, I sat at my dining table and connected to the video call with Marcus Patterson. His face appeared on screen, Seattle's iconic Space Needle visible through the window behind him. Jennifer, great to see you again, even virtually. I've been following the news about Taylor Precision's new investment. Congratulations on that achievement. Thank you, Marcus. It was a significant effort. I maintained my composure, refusing to let bitterness color this new beginning. I'm sure it was, which makes me all the more curious about your sudden interest in our position. Last we spoke, you were fully committed to your family business. I took a deep breath. Circumstances change. Sometimes we need to recognize when a situation no longer serves our growth or values our contributions. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. I won't pry, but I will say that our offer has actually improved since we last spoke. We've secured our own round of funding, and we're looking to build out our executive team with people who understand both traditional manufacturing and modern technological innovation. Someone with your unique background would be invaluable. For the next hour, we discussed the position, the company's vision, compensation, and relocation assistance. By the end of the call, Marcus had made a formal offer that exceeded my current salary by 40%, with equity options that could be worth significantly more if the company continued its growth trajectory. Take some time to think about it, Marcus said as we wrapped up. This is a big move. I appreciate that, but I don't need time, I replied with certainty. I accept the offer. His eyebrows rose in surprise. Then he smiled broadly. Well, then, welcome to TechForge Manufacturing. How soon can you start? I'll need 2 weeks to wrap things up here and make arrangements to move. Perfect. I'll have HR send over the paperwork today. Looking forward to having you on the team, Jennifer. After the call ended, I sat still for several minutes, absorbing the enormity of what I'd just done. 15 years of dedication to Taylor Precision ended with a 30-minute conversation. It felt surreal, frightening, and strangely liberating all at once. I arrived at the office an hour later than usual, walking in with a confidence I hadn't felt in months. The morning passed in a blur of finalizing reports and transitioning projects to colleagues. At noon, I requested a meeting with my father. I'm busy today, Jennifer, he said when I appeared in his doorway. Can this wait until tomorrow? No, it can't. Something in my tone made him look up from his computer. He studied my face for a moment, then sighed and gestured to the chair across from his desk. What is it? I handed him an envelope. My resignation, effective 2 weeks from today. He stared at the envelope without opening it. Is this some kind of tantrum over Nathan's appointment? It's a business decision, I replied evenly. I've accepted a position with TechForge Manufacturing in Seattle. The shock on his face was almost worth the past few days of pain. TechForge? That startup? You're leaving a century-old family business for a company that might not exist in 5 years? A company that values my contributions and offers me a path to advancement based on merit rather than birth order, I countered. He opened the envelope, scanning my resignation letter with growing anger. This is about your brother, isn't it? You always were jealous of the bond Nathan and I share. The accusation stung, but I refused to be baited. This is about recognizing when it's time to move on. Mom always said I shouldn't let the company become my whole world. She was right. Don't bring your mother into this, he snapped. She would be disappointed by your disloyalty. I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. No, Dad. Mom, would understand exactly why I'm doing this. She always saw me clearly, even when you couldn't. I stood to leave, but paused at the door. By the way, I've prepared detailed transition documents for all my projects and responsibilities. Unlike some people in this family, I don't believe in leaving others to clean up my messes. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of preparations. I found a furnished apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, arranged for my Milwaukee apartment to be sublet, and methodically documented every aspect of my role at Taylor Precision. Professional to the end, even as whispers and speculation swirled around the office. Nathan made only sporadic appearances, arriving late and leaving early each day, already treating his new role as a casual obligation rather than a responsibility. I heard through office gossip that he'd already requested a significant advance on his new salary to purchase a luxury SUV. On my last day, the production staff organized a small farewell gathering in the break room. Frank presented me with a plaque they'd had made, engraved with Jennifer Taylor, the heart of Taylor Precision. "We wanted you to know how much you mean to this place," Frank said, uncomfortable with public speaking, but determined to make the gesture. "To us, you'll always be part of what makes this company special." I fought back tears as I thanked them, promising to stay in touch. My father did not attend the gathering. When the time came to leave, I walked through the manufacturing floor, one last time, saying individual goodbyes to employees I'd known my entire life. The familiar smells of metal and machine oil, once so comforting, now felt like a chapter closing. As I reached my car, Nathan pulled into the parking lot in his brand-new Range Rover, arriving just as I was leaving for the final time. "So you're really going through with it," he called out, climbing from his vehicle. "Running away because Daddy didn't give you what you wanted." "I'm not running away, Nathan. I'm moving toward something better." I placed the last of my belongings in my trunk. "I hope you surprise everyone and take this opportunity seriously. A lot of people depend on this company," he scoffed. "Always the responsible one, right to the end. Don't worry about us. Dad and I will manage just fine without your constant hovering." I closed my trunk and faced my brother fully. "You know what, Nathan? For the first time in my life, I'm not worried about how you and Dad will manage. That's your problem now, not mine." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm free," I replied simply. "Good luck. You're going to need it." I drove away from Taylor Precision Manufacturing for the last time, watching it shrink in my rearview mirror until it disappeared. Completely. Ahead lay a 2-day drive to Seattle, a new job, a new city, a new life entirely of my own making. I called Vanessa from the road. "I just left." "How do you feel?" she asked. I considered the question as Milwaukee's skyline faded behind me. Terrified, exhilarated, sad, free, all of it at once. "That sounds about right," she laughed. "When do you want me to come visit you in Seattle?" "Give me a month to get settled. Then come see what Jennifer Taylor looks like when she's not defined by Taylor Precision." "I can't wait," she said warmly. "I'm proud of you, Jen." As I crossed from Wisconsin into Minnesota, following the setting sun westward, I realized that, for the first time in my adult life, I was truly on my own. No family expectations weighing me down, no predetermined path to follow. Just open road and possibilities stretching before me. The apartment in Seattle was smaller than my place in Milwaukee, but the views of the city and distant mountains made it feel expansive. I spent my first weekend exploring my new neighborhood, finding favorite coffee shops and markets, beginning to imagine a life here. On Monday morning, I arrived at TechForge's offices in downtown Seattle, nervous but eager to begin. The contrast with Taylor Precision was immediately apparent. Open concept workspaces instead of walled offices, casual dress instead of business attire, and a diverse workforce spanning generations and backgrounds. Marcus greeted me personally, introducing me to key team members before showing me to my new workspace. "We're thrilled to have you on board, Jennifer. Your experience bridging traditional manufacturing with new technologies is exactly what we need at this growth stage. Thank you for the opportunity, I replied, meaning it more deeply than he could know. I'm excited to be part of building something new. That first week was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Learning new systems, absorbing the company culture, beginning to contribute in meetings where my input was genuinely valued and considered. I worked late most evenings, not out of obligation, but from genuine enthusiasm for the projects I was joining. It was during my second week that I received a text from Frank back in Milwaukee. Thought you should know. Nathan approved a withdrawal of $500K from the business development account today for consulting fees. Board meeting tomorrow to discuss. I stared at the message, a complex mixture of vindication and concern washing over me. Part of me wanted to call my father immediately, to say, "I told you so," or offer to help fix the inevitable mess. The old Jennifer would have done exactly that, rushed in to solve problems I hadn't created, to protect people who had never protected me. Instead, I typed a simple response to Frank. "Thanks for letting me know. I hope it works out." Then I turned off my phone and went to meet my new colleagues for happy hour, choosing for once to prioritize my new beginning over the problems of my past. 2 months later, I was fully settled into my role at TechForge, leading a team developing software to optimize traditional manufacturing processes, exactly the kind of innovation I'd tried to implement at Taylor Precision. My apartment was beginning to feel like home, and I'd made several friends at work who were showing me the best of Seattle culture. Vanessa visited for a long weekend, marveling at the change in me. "You seem lighter," she observed as we hiked, along a trail overlooking Puget Sound. "More yourself somehow." "I feel more like myself," I agreed. I didn't realize how much I'd been contorting to fit into the space my father allowed me until I stopped doing it. "Have you heard anything from them?" she asked carefully. I nodded. "Dad called last week, actually. First time since I left." "And?" "The board forced Nathan to step down after he misappropriated investment funds. Dad wanted to know if I'd consider coming back to help sort things out." Vanessa stopped walking. "Are you serious? What did you say?" I smiled, remembering the strange calm I'd felt during that conversation. I said no. I wished him well, told him I was happy in my new position, and suggested he promote Linda from accounting to financial director. She's been there 20 years and knows the business inside and out. How did he take it? Not well, I admitted. He said something about family loyalty and hanging him out to dry. I reminded him that loyalty works both ways. We continued, walking in comfortable silence for a while before Vanessa spoke again. "Do you miss it? The family business?" I considered the question seriously. "I miss parts of it. The history, the connection to my grandfather and mother, knowing every person on the floor by name. But I don't miss who I was there, always trying to prove myself, always coming in second to Nathan despite working twice as hard." Later that evening, as we enjoyed dinner at a waterfront restaurant, Vanessa raised her glass in a toast. To Jennifer Taylor, who secured a $10 million investment for her family business, then walked away to invest in herself instead. I clinked my glass against hers, feeling the truth of her words resonate through me. The greatest investment had indeed been in myself, in my worth, my future, my happiness. And unlike the investment I'd secured for Taylor Precision, this one couldn't be squandered by someone else's poor decisions. As the sun set over Seattle's skyline, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, but it was mine to determine. For the first time in my life, that seemed like more than enough. 3 months into my new life in Seattle, I received an unexpected email from Linda, our former head of accounting at Taylor Precision. Financial situation deteriorating rapidly. Nathan made several unauthorized transfers to personal accounts. Board called emergency meeting, Your father suffered minor heart attack from stress. He's stable now. Thought you should know. I read the message 5 times, sitting motionless at my desk in TechForge's open concept office while colleagues bustled around me. The Seattle rain tapped against the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a soothing counterpoint to the turmoil inside. Me? My first instinct was to book the next flight to Milwaukee, to rush back and fix everything. The response that had been conditioned into me since childhood. Instead, I closed my laptop and walked to Marcus's office. "Everything okay?" he asked, looking up from his desk. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Family emergency," I said simply. "My father's in the hospital. I may need a few days." Marcus's face softened with concern. "Take whatever time you need, Jennifer. We'll handle things here." On the flight to Milwaukee, I considered what awaited me. The business my grandfather had built from a single lathe in his garage, the legacy my mother had cherished, was likely in shambles. My father, for all his faults, was lying in a hospital bed. And Nathan, I couldn't even begin to process my feelings about Nathan. Vanessa met me at the airport, her familiar face a welcome sight after months away. "How bad is it?" I asked as we walked to her car. She grimaced. "The business or your father?" "Both. Your dad's stable. Mild heart attack. But the doctors say he should make a full recovery with medication and lifestyle changes." She hesitated before continuing. "The business is another story. Nathan withdrew nearly $2 million over 6 weeks, claiming consulting fees and expansion expenses. When the board finally caught on and demanded documentation, he couldn't produce any. He's facing potential criminal charges." I leaned back against the headrest, closing my eyes. "And the Cartwright investment?" "Most of it's gone. They're threatening to pull the remaining installments and sue for breach of contract." The familiar Milwaukee skyline appeared through the windshield as we approached downtown, the Taylor Precision Building visible among the larger structures. For a moment, I was transported back to childhood drives with my father, his voice filled with pride as he pointed out our building among the city's landmarks. "Where should I drop you?" Vanessa asked, interrupting my thoughts. "Hospital or the office?" I considered for a moment. Hospital first. Aurora St. Luke's Medical Center loomed large and institutional as we pulled into the parking structure. I'd been here too many times before, when my mother was undergoing cancer treatments, when my grandfather suffered the stroke that eventually took him. Hospitals had a way of stripping away pretense, reducing people to their essential selves, in harsh fluorescent lighting. My father's private room was quiet, except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors. He looked smaller somehow, diminished against the white sheets, his usually immaculate hair disheveled. His eyes were closed, but opened, as I approached the bed. "Jennifer." His voice was rough from disuse. "You came." "Of course I came." I set my bag down and took the chair beside his bed. "Nathan said you wouldn't." He adjusted himself slightly, wincing. "Said you'd abandoned the family for good." The familiar anger flared, but I tamped it down. "Nathan says a lot of things. Dad, most of them aren't true." My father looked away, his profile sharp against the window light. "He's disappeared. Took what was left in his accounts and vanished 3 days ago. Police are looking for him." I wasn't surprised, but the confirmation still stung. "How much did he take in total?" "Nearly $3 million. He said it flatly, as if the amount was too enormous to carry emotional weight. Plus the Porsche he leased on the company account, and a condo in Florida, apparently. $3 million, I echoed. The sum represented years of careful financial management, sacrificed weekends and holidays, countless presentations and client meetings, all gone because my father couldn't see what was right in front of him. "The board wants me to step down." He turned back to face me, his eyes watery but proud. 35 years building on what my father started, and they want me out. "Can you blame them?" The words came out sharper than I intended. You handed financial control to someone with a history of irresponsibility, someone who hadn't worked a day in the company for years. He's my son, he said simply, as if that explained everything. And I'm your daughter, I countered. The one who worked tirelessly to save the company. The one you passed over without a second thought. He had the grace to look ashamed just for a moment, before his familiar defensiveness returned. I did what I thought was best for the family. Nathan needed the opportunity. And look where that got you. Look where it got the company. Stood up, unable to remain still with frustration coursing through me. Do you have any idea what you did when you made that decision? Not just to me, but to everyone who depends on Taylor Precision for their livelihood? I know I made a mistake, he admitted, the words clearly difficult for him. That's why I asked Linda to contact you. We need you back, Jennifer. The company needs you. I stared at him, searching his face for any recognition of what he was asking. After dismissing my contributions, after elevating Nathan at my expense, after driving me to uproot my entire life, he expected me to simply return and fix his mistakes. I have a job in Seattle, I said finally. A good one, with people who value my contributions. This is your family's company, he insisted, a hint of the old commanding tone returning despite his weakened state. Your grandfather would expect you to step up in a crisis. Don't, I warned, my voice low. Don't use Grandpa against me. He built this company by recognizing talent and rewarding hard work. He would never have put Nathan in charge of finances. My father looked away again, unable to contest this truth. I'll help, I said after a long silence. But not as an employee, and not permanently. I'll consult for 6 weeks to help stabilize the situation. After that, I'm going back to Seattle. Relief washed over his features, quickly replaced by the calculation I'd seen throughout my childhood whenever he was determining how to get his way. The board won't accept an external consultant for financial restructuring. They want family leadership they can trust. Then the board can speak with me directly, I replied. Those are my terms, Dad. Take them or leave them. He studied me with new eyes, perhaps seeing for the first time that I was no longer the daughter desperate for his approval. You've changed, he observed quietly. Yes, I agreed. I have. The next morning, I walked into Taylor Precision Manufacturing for the first time since my departure. The security guard at the front desk did a double take when I presented my ID. Ms. Taylor, we didn't know you were coming back. Just temporarily, Joe, I clarified, signing the visitor log. Here to help sort out some issues. The manufacturing floor looked the same. The familiar hum of machinery, the organized chaos of production. Several longtime employees nodded or waved as I passed, their expressions a mixture of surprise and relief. Frank intercepted me before I reached the executive offices. Never thought I'd see you walk through those doors again, he said, his weathered face breaking into a genuine smile. Good to have you back, even if it's just to clean up the mess. Good to see you too, Frank. How bad is it on the floor? He glanced around before lowering his voice. We're operating at 60% capacity. Parts shortages, delayed maintenance on key equipment. There's talk of layoffs if things don't turn around by month's end. I nodded, absorbing this information. I'm meeting with the board in 30 minutes. Is there anything specific I should know before I go in? Just that morale's in the gutter. Your brother didn't exactly inspire confidence, and there have been rumors about closure for weeks. People are scared, updating resumes. He hesitated, then added, Your father keeping things so close to the vest didn't help. Nobody knew how bad it was getting until it was almost too late. Transparency will be my first priority, I promised. No more secrets. The boardroom fell silent as I entered, 8 pairs of eyes tracking my movement to the empty chair at the far end of the table. I recognized most of the faces. long-term investors, a few industry partners, my father's college friend who'd been on the board since before I was born. The only person I didn't recognize was a sharp-featured woman in her 50s, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. "Ms. Taylor," began Howard Winters, the board chairman. "Thank you for joining us on such short notice. I believe you know everyone except Gloria Patterson from Cartwright Industries." My stomach dropped. Marcus Patterson's mother. I'd met her briefly at the industry conference where I'd first connected with her son. She gave no sign of recognizing me, her expression coolly professional. "I understand you're offering your services as a consultant to help us navigate the current crisis," Howard continued. "While we appreciate the gesture, the board has concerns about bringing in external help at this juncture, especially given the sensitive nature of the financial improprieties." "I'm hardly external," I pointed out. "I worked at this company for 15 years. I know its operations intimately, and until 3 months ago, I managed the very investment that's now in jeopardy." "And yet you left," noted Gloria Patterson, speaking for the first time. "Rather abruptly, as I understand it, just before financial oversight of the expansion project was transferred to Nathan Taylor." There it was, the implication hanging in the air. Had I known what my brother would do? Had I abandoned ship knowing it would sink? "I left because my contributions were consistently undervalued," I stated plainly. "I secured the Cartwright investment through 18 months of diligent work, creating a business plan that would have transformed this company. When my father appointed my unqualified brother to oversee that investment instead of me, I chose to pursue opportunities elsewhere. I did not anticipate Nathan's actions, but I can't say I'm surprised by them either." Gloria's eyebrows rose slightly at my candor. The other board members exchanged glances. "What exactly are you proposing?" Howard asked after a moment. "A 6-week restructuring consultation. I'll work with your financial team to identify all unauthorized transactions, create a recovery plan, and establish proper controls to prevent future misappropriation. I'll also develop a revised business plan that might salvage what remains of the Cartwright relationship." I nodded toward Gloria, all while maintaining my position at TechForge Manufacturing in Seattle. "TechForge?" Gloria repeated, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Marcus Patterson's company?" "Yes, I'm their director of implementation strategy." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Interesting." Howard leaned forward, fingers steepled. "And what would you expect in terms of compensation for this consultation?" "Market rate for financial restructuring services," I replied evenly. "Plus, expenses for commuting between Seattle and Milwaukee during the 6-week period." "That seems reasonable," Gloria interjected before Howard could respond. "Though I'd suggest we include performance incentives tied to recovery of misappropriated funds." Howard looked surprised at her support. "You're in favor of this arrangement, Mrs. Patterson? Given Cartwright's substantial stake in our expansion, I would have thought you'd want someone with more continuity." "What I want," Gloria said precisely, "is competence and transparency. Ms. Taylor has demonstrated both in her previous dealings with Cartwright Industries. The fact that she's willing to put her reputation on the line to salvage this situation speaks volumes." The tension in the room shifted, other board members nodding in tentative agreement. "There is one condition," I added, seeing the momentum turning in my favor. "Complete autonomy in financial decisions during the restructuring. Period. No interference from management, including my father." This provoked murmurs around the table. Howard frowned. "Richard Taylor is still CEO of this company, despite his current medical leave." "Richard Taylor appointed the person who created this crisis," I reminded them. "His judgment in financial matters has been compromised. I can't work effectively if I'm constantly battling management decisions that undermine recovery efforts." Gloria nodded slowly. "A reasonable precaution, given the circumstances." The discussion continued for another hour, details negotiated, concerns addressed. By the time we adjourned, I had a signed consulting agreement and temporary authority over Taylor Precision's financial operations. As we filed out of the boardroom, Gloria Patterson held back to walk beside me. "My son speaks very highly of you," she said quietly. "Says you're the best hire he's made in years." I maintained my professional demeanor, despite my surprise. TechForge is an exciting company with tremendous potential. I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to its growth. "I imagine this situation puts you in an awkward position," she continued, gesturing vaguely to encompass the Taylor Precision offices. "Consulting for a company that's essentially a competitor to your current employer." "I've discussed it with Marcus," I assured her. "There's no conflict of interest. Taylor Precision operates in a different segment of the manufacturing sector than TechForge." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. For what it's worth, I opposed Richard's decision to put Nathan in charge of the expansion. "The investment committee at Cartwright was impressed by your presentation, not by whatever backdoor influence Richard thought he was exercising." The revelation stopped me in my tracks. "You knew about that?" Gloria's smile was knowing. "Richard and my husband play golf together. William mentioned Richard's suggestion that appointing Nathan would smooth relations between our companies. I made it clear that Cartwright invests based on solid business plans, not personal connections." The weight that had settled in my chest since Nathan's smug phone call months ago suddenly lifted. My work had been recognized on its merits after all. The investment had been secured through my efforts, not my father's interference. "Thank you for telling me that," I said sincerely. "Truth is valuable," she replied simply, "especially when it's been in short supply." The following weeks were among the most demanding of my professional life. Monday through Thursday, I worked remotely for TechForge from a temporary office at Taylor Precision, carefully segregating my time and responsibilities. Fridays through Sundays, I flew back to Seattle, maintaining my presence and momentum on key projects there. The damage Nathan had done was extensive and meticulously concealed. With Linda from accounting at my side, I traced a labyrinth of fraudulent invoices, shell companies, and manufactured expenses. My brother had been siphoning funds from the company for years, long before the Cartwright investment created a larger pool to steal from. "How did no one catch this?" I asked Linda, as we pored over bank statements late one evening, takeout containers pushed to the side of the conference table. She looked uncomfortable. "Your father discouraged too much scrutiny of Nathan's expenses, said it was family business and to route approvals through him directly." The revelation shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Even after I left, when Nathan officially took over financial direction? "Especially then," Linda confirmed. Richard was adamant that Nathan needed space to find his footing without being micromanaged. I rubbed my temples, fighting a growing headache. "And the board never questioned this?" "The board only sees quarterly reports. By the time the numbers reached them, everything had been sanitized." She hesitated before adding, "Your father can be very persuasive when he wants to be." That was an understatement. Richard Taylor had built his career on charm and confidence, qualities that Nathan had inherited in abundance. Those same qualities had enabled both men to operate without the scrutiny that would have been applied to anyone else, including me. The realization hit with sudden clarity. I had always been held to a higher standard precisely because I lacked the effortless charisma that father and son wielded so effectively. My work had been questioned, examined, critiqued at every turn, forcing me to be meticulous, thorough, unassailable in my performance. It was that very scrutiny that had made me effective, that had developed the skills now allowing me to unravel Nathan's financial shell game. "We need to restructure the entire approval process," I told Linda, a new energy infusing my voice. "No more special channels, no more exemptions for family members. Every expenditure over $5,000 requires dual authentication, regardless of who initiates it." She nodded, relief evident in her expression. "I've been wanting to Implement something like that for years. Now's your chance, I said firmly. Draft the policy tonight. We'll present it to the board tomorrow. The board meeting the next day was tense but productive. I presented our findings to date. Approximately $2.4 million identified as fraudulently diverted, with the potential for more still hidden in creative accounting. I outlined the new financial controls we were implementing and the recovery strategy for salvaging the Cartwright expansion. We've located approximately $800,000 in recoverable assets, I explained. Nathan's Milwaukee condo, the Porsche, and several investment accounts he apparently forgot to empty before disappearing. That still leaves over $1.6 million unaccounted for, observed Howard Winters. How do you propose we address that shortfall? I took a deep breath. We have 3 options. First, we can downsize the expansion significantly, focusing only on the highest yield improvements to our manufacturing lines. Second, we can seek additional investment, though that would mean diluting current shareholder equity. Or third, I hesitated, knowing this option would be the most controversial. We can sell our patent portfolio for the next-generation precision tooling designs. The room erupted in objections, just as I'd anticipated. The patents represented Taylor Precision's future, innovative designs my grandfather had initiated, and my father had continued developing throughout his career. When the noise subsided, I continued calmly. I don't personally recommend the third option. Those patents are this company's most valuable intellectual asset. But full transparency requires I present all viable alternatives. Gloria Patterson, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. There may be a fourth option. All eyes turned to her. Cartwright Industries is still interested in the core expansion concept that Jennifer originally presented. What if we restructured the investment as a joint venture rather than a capital infusion? Cartwright would contribute the remaining $7 million directly to specific expansion projects, maintaining separate accounting and oversight, while Taylor Precision would contribute its technical expertise and production capacity. The proposal was unexpected and intriguing. It would mean giving up some control, but would salvage the expansion without requiring asset sales or dramatic downsizing. That would be contingent, of course, Gloria continued, on Jennifer remaining involved in an oversight capacity for the duration of the joint venture implementation. And there it was, the string attached. I kept my expression neutral despite the surprise. As I've made clear, my primary commitment is to TechForge manufacturing in Seattle. I'm only here as a temporary consultant. Gloria nodded. I understand. However, Cartwright's confidence in this venture was largely based on your business plan and presentation. If we're to restructure rather than withdraw completely, we need assurance that your vision will guide implementation, even if remotely. The board members were watching me intently, hope mingling with uncertainty in their expressions. They needed this deal, needed Cartwright's continued involvement to keep Taylor Precision viable. I would need to discuss this with my current employer, I said carefully. There may be arrangements we could make for limited ongoing consultation, but I can't commit to anything without speaking to Marcus first. Of course, Gloria agreed smoothly. Take whatever time you need. Cartwright is prepared to delay our final decision until you've had those conversations. As the meeting adjourned, I found myself in the strange position of holding my family, company's fate in my hands, the exact position I'd worked toward for years, achieved only after walking away entirely. Back in my temporary office, I called Marcus, explaining the situation as factually as possible. Let me get this straight, he said when I'd finished. Cartwright wants you to oversee their joint venture with Taylor Precision while continuing. Your role at TechForge? In some capacity, yes. The details would need to be worked out. And this is Gloria Patterson's suggestion? He sounded both impressed and suspicious. My mother doesn't usually involve herself this directly in investment structures. She seems to have taken a particular interest in this situation, I acknowledged, choosing my words carefully. Perhaps because of our connection. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Mom has always had an eye for talent. And for leverage. Another pause. How do you feel about this, Jennifer? After everything your father put you through, do you even want to remain involved with Taylor Precision? The question cut to the heart of my tangled emotions. Did I want ongoing connection to the company that had simultaneously shaped my identity and diminished my worth? To the legacy that was as much mine as it was my father's or brother's, despite their efforts to marginalize my contributions? It's not about what I want, I hedged. It's about what makes sense professionally. That's not an answer, Marcus said gently. What do you want, Jennifer? The directness of his question caught me off guard. In the Taylor family, personal desires had always been secondary to company needs, individual fulfillment sacrificed for collective legacy. No one had asked what I wanted in years, perhaps ever. I began, then stopped, surprised by the emotion welling up. I want to finish what I started. The expansion plan was mine, something I believed in, something that could transform Taylor Precision for the better. Part of me wants to see it through, even from a distance. I took a deep breath. But I also want to build something new at TechForge, to be valued for my contributions rather than tolerated because of my name. Who says you can't do both? Marcus suggested. We could structure a formal partnership between TechForge and Taylor Precision, with you as the liaison. Your work on manufacturing optimization software at TechForge directly applies to what Taylor's trying to accomplish. The elegant solution took me by surprise. You'd be willing to consider that? Jennifer, I hired you because you understand both traditional manufacturing and technological innovation. This situation, while unorthodox, actually highlights exactly why you're valuable to TechForge. We've been looking for established manufacturing partners to beta test our systems. Taylor Precision could be ideal, especially with someone who knows both companies intimately coordinating the effort. For the first time in weeks, I felt genuine hope unfurling. Not the desperate determination that had driven my crisis management, but actual optimism about a future that integrated rather than abandoned my past. I'll need to discuss this with the board here, I cautioned, and with Gloria Patterson. Do that, Marcus agreed. And Jennifer? Whatever you decide, your position at TechForge is secure. This is an opportunity, not an ultimatum. The simple reassurance meant more than he could know. Throughout my career at Taylor Precision, every opportunity had come with unspoken conditions, every achievement shadowed by implicit threats of what would happen if I didn't maintain perfect performance. Marcus's straightforward support was still unfamiliar, but increasingly precious. That evening, I visited my father at his home, where he was recovering under the watchful eye of a home health nurse. He looked better than he had in the hospital, some color returning to his face, though fatigue still lined his features. The board says you've been working miracles, he said as I settled into a chair beside his recliner. Found most of what Nathan took, restructured the Cartwright deal. Not miracles, I corrected. Just solid financial management. Something the company should have prioritized years ago. He acknowledged this with a slight nod. Gloria Patterson seems impressed with you. Says you remind her of herself at your age. Coming from Gloria, that was high praise indeed. She's made an interesting proposal, I said, watching my father's reaction carefully as I outlined the joint venture concept. His expression cycled through surprise, calculation, and finally tentative approval. It's unorthodox, but it might be our best option under the circumstances. He hesitated before adding, it would mean you staying involved with Taylor Precision, even from Seattle. In a limited capacity, I clarified, and potentially as part of a formal partnership between Taylor Precision and TechForge. TechForge? He repeated, testing the name. I looked them up, after you left. Impressive operation, cutting edge. Very different from what we do here. The acknowledgement of my new company, however grudging, was unexpected. Different but complementary, I suggested. Their software could optimize Taylor Precision's production processes, increasing efficiency by an estimated 20%. My father's eyes sharpened with interest, the businessman in him responding to numbers, to potential profit. 20% would offset much of what Nathan took over time. Exactly. We sat in silence for a few moments, the grandfather clock in the hallway, a Taylor family heirloom, ticking steadily. I was wrong, my father said finally, the words clearly difficult for him. About Nathan, about you, about a lot of things. I waited, knowing from lifelong experience how rare this kind of admission was from Richard Taylor. You were always the one who should have taken over, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. I just couldn't see it, or didn't want to. Nathan was so much like me, or how I saw myself, that I was blind to his faults. And you were so much like your mother, steady, intelligent, thorough, that I took your contributions for granted. The comparison to my mother, meant as a belated compliment, struck a deep chord. Mom would have seen through Nathan in a heartbeat, I said softly. A sad smile touched his lips. She did. Warned me about his financial irresponsibility years ago. I didn't listen then either. Another silence fell between us, heavy with decades of misaligned expectations and missed connections. This partnership you're proposing, he said eventually. It would keep you connected to Taylor Precision without requiring you to give up what you're building in Seattle. That's the idea. He nodded slowly. It's a good solution. Creative, forward-thinking. He met my eyes directly. Your grandfather would have approved. The words, so long desired and now finally offered, washed over me with surprising gentleness. I had spent years seeking this validation, this recognition of my place in the Taylor legacy. Now that it had come, I found it mattered less than I had expected. Pleasant, yes. Satisfying, certainly, but no longer essential to my sense of self or worth. Thank you, I said simply. That means something coming from you. As I prepared to leave, my father reached for my hand, an uncharacteristic gesture from a man who rarely initiated physical contact. When this is all settled, he said, I'd like to visit you in Seattle. See this new life you're building. If that would be acceptable? The tentative request, so unlike his usual confident demands, revealed just how much our relationship had shifted. He was no longer the unquestioned authority figure, nor I the daughter seeking approval. We were two adults negotiating a new connection based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I'd like that, I replied truthfully. Seattle has a lot to offer. I think you'd enjoy it. Driving back to my hotel, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me to this crossroads. 3 months ago, I had fled Milwaukee with a broken heart and wounded pride, certain I was closing the door on Taylor Precision forever. Now I was potentially forging a new connection between my past and future, not returning to what had been, but creating something entirely new that honored both. My phone chimed with a text from Vanessa. Dinner tonight to celebrate? Heard through the grapevine that Cartwright's back on board thanks to you. I smiled, typing back. Absolutely. 8 p.m. at Elsa's? Lots to tell you. As the Milwaukee skyline glowed in the evening light, I felt a sense of completion that had nothing to do with returning to Taylor Precision and everything to do with transcending it. The family business would always be part of my story, but it no longer defined the boundaries of my potential or the measure of my worth. I had secured a $10 million investment for our family business, then watched my father name my unemployed brother as financial director. But that was no longer the end of my story, just the catalyst for a new beginning that was proving more rewarding than I could have imagined. 6 months after the crisis at Taylor Precision, I stood at the window of my Seattle apartment, watching rain cascade down the glass while the Space Needle appeared and disappeared through shifting fog. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Taylor TechForge Quarterly Review, 1 p.m., video conference. The regular meeting had become a fixture in my schedule, a tether connecting my new life to my old one. The partnership Marcus and I had crafted between the companies had exceeded everyone's expectations. Taylor Precision's manufacturing processes had been optimized using TechForge's software, leading to a 26% increase in efficiency, even better than my initial projections. The Cartwright investment, restructured as a joint venture, had funded modernization of the Milwaukee plant while preserving the Taylor family's controlling interest. And my father, gradually recovering from his heart attack, had implemented most of the governance reforms I'd recommended, including appointing Linda as permanent CFO. Nathan remained a ghost, occasionally spotted in Palm Beach or Vegas, but never returning to face the consequences of his actions. The company had recovered about half of what he'd stolen through asset seizures and legal action. The remainder had been written off as a painful lesson in proper oversight, one that Taylor Precision would never need to learn again. My own role had evolved from crisis manager to strategic advisor, connecting two companies that might never have collaborated without my singular experience bridging traditional manufacturing and technological innovation. My weekly video conferences with the Taylor team had become less about damage control and more about future opportunities, my relationship with my father shifting from antagonistic to cautiously collaborative. Taylor TechForge integration looks solid, Marcus said, reviewing our quarterly numbers during our morning check-in. Your father's team has been surprisingly adaptable for an old-school manufacturing operation. I smiled, remembering my father's initial resistance to TechForge's cloud-based monitoring systems. They had a good incentive to change. The alternative was bankruptcy. True, but many companies in that position would have folded rather than transform. Marcus closed the financial summary on his tablet. Speaking of transformation, have you given any more thought to the Boulder project? The Boulder project was TechForge's first major expansion, a new development center in Colorado focused on artificial intelligence applications for manufacturing. Marcus had asked me to lead the initiative, a significant promotion that would shape the company's future direction. I'm still analyzing the numbers, I hedged, though we both knew my hesitation wasn't about finances. It's a big commitment. 3 years minimum, Marcus confirmed. Building a team from scratch, establishing partnerships with the university research departments, creating something entirely new. He studied me thoughtfully. It's exactly the kind of challenge you excel at, Jennifer. It would mean less involvement with Taylor Precision, I pointed out. The joint venture agreement specifies my personal oversight. Marcus shrugged. Agreements can be amended if all parties consent. The real question is whether you're ready to step fully into your future, or if you're still feeling obligated to your past. His gentle probe hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. For months, I'd maintained a careful balance between my commitment to TechForge and my ongoing connection to Taylor Precision. The arrangement had seemed ideal, allowing me to build my new career while preserving my family legacy. But lately, I'd begun to wonder if I was limiting myself, trying to exist in two worlds instead of fully committing to either. I'll have an answer for you by the end of the month, I promised, after the quarterly review. The video conference that afternoon connected my Seattle office with the Taylor Precision boardroom in Milwaukee. My father sat at the head of the table, noticeably thinner since his heart attack, but with the same commanding presence. Linda was beside him, tablet and financial reports arranged precisely before her. Gloria Patterson represented Cartwright Industries, her silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Production targets for Q2 exceeded projections by 12%, Linda reported, sharing her screen to display a series of charts. Material costs have stabilized after last quarter's spike, and labor efficiency continues to improve as staff become more familiar with the new systems. Impressive numbers, Gloria commented. The joint venture is outperforming our expectations on nearly every metric. My father nodded, looking satisfied. Jennifer's implementation strategy has proven remarkably effective. The integration of TechForge's monitoring software with our existing processes was far smoother than I anticipated. The acknowledgement, delivered in a professional tone without a hint of the personal tension that had characterized our relationship for decades, represented how far we'd come. Richard Taylor had never been one to admit mistakes or acknowledge others' contributions. That he could now do both, particularly regarding his daughter, showed genuine growth. Marcus and I were just discussing next steps this morning, I said, transitioning to the forward-looking portion of our agenda. Based on the success of the initial implementation, we're recommending deployment of TechForge's predictive maintenance module across all production lines. Cost? My father asked immediately, old habits resurfacing. Approximately 15% less than budgeted for the current maintenance program, I answered smoothly. With estimated downtime reduction of 30%. The ROI calculation is on page 12 of the report I sent yesterday. He flipped through his papers, finding the relevant analysis. Impressive, he murmured, scanning the numbers. Linda, your thoughts? The figures are solid, she confirmed. Jennifer and I went through them in detail last week. I'm comfortable recommending implementation. Cartwright concurs, Gloria added. This is precisely the kind of optimization we envisioned when we restructured the investment. My father looked up from the report, his expression thoughtful. It seems we have consensus then. He paused, then added, Jennifer, when would you be available to oversee the implementation? In person? Some aspects of this rollout would benefit from your direct involvement? The request caught me off guard. I'd been conducting all my Taylor precision work remotely for months, with occasional video walkthroughs when physical presence was necessary. An in-person implementation would require at least 2 weeks in Milwaukee. Time. That would pull me away from increasingly important projects at TechForge, including preparation for the Boulder initiative. I'll need to coordinate with my schedule here, I said carefully. When were you thinking? Next month would be ideal, he replied. I understand it's short notice, but there's another matter I'd like to discuss while you're here. A potential restructuring of the company leadership. Linda and Gloria exchanged glances, clearly already aware of whatever my father was planning. My curiosity piqued. I'll make it work, I agreed. I'll arrive the weekend before implementation begins. After the meeting concluded, I called Marcus to update him. 2 weeks in Milwaukee, he repeated. That's longer than you've been back since the initial crisis. Is there something else going on? My father mentioned a leadership restructuring he wants to discuss in person. I hesitated, uncertain how to interpret the cryptic comment. It could be nothing, but Richard Taylor doesn't discuss leadership changes unless they're significant, Marcus finished for me. And he wants you physically present for the conversation. Exactly. Could he be retiring? Bringing you back to run the company? The question sent an unexpected jolt through me, part alarm, part long-buried desire. I doubt it. He's recovering well from the heart attack, and Taylor? Precision is his life. Besides, I've made it clear I'm committed to TechForge. Have you? Marcus asked mildly. Because from where I sit, you've been carefully maintaining connections to both companies, which is completely understandable given your history. But it might have sent mixed signals about your long-term intentions. His observation was uncomfortably perceptive. I had been deliberately ambiguous about my future plans, keeping doors open in both directions. The Taylor TechForge partnership had enabled this balancing act, allowing me to contribute significantly to both companies without fully committing to either. I should decline the Boulder project until after this Milwaukee trip, I suggested. Once I understand what my father is planning, I'll have a clearer picture of my options. Marcus shook his head. That's exactly the indecision I'm talking about, Jennifer. You're still letting Taylor Precision dictate your timeline, your choices. At some point, you need to decide what you want, regardless of what your father might offer. His words stung because they contained truth I'd been avoiding. Despite all my progress in establishing independence, I was still orbiting the gravitational pull of Taylor Precision, adjusting my trajectory based on my father's movements. You're right, I admitted. I need to make a decision based on what I want, not what he might want from me. So what do you want? Marcus pressed gently. I considered the question seriously, allowing myself to acknowledge desires I'd been suppressing. I want to build something new. I want to lead the Boulder Project, to shape a division from the ground up based on my vision and values. Then tell me that officially, Marcus urged. Commit to Boulder before you go to Milwaukee. Make your decision independent of whatever Richard might be planning. The idea was both terrifying and liberating. If I accepted the Boulder position, I would be definitively choosing my future over my past, TechForge over Taylor Precision. The symbolic significance would be impossible for my father to misinterpret. I'll think about it, I promised. That evening, Sophia, a colleague who had become a close friend since my move to Seattle, invited me to dinner at her favorite waterfront restaurant. We were halfway through our meal when she fixed me with a knowing look. Okay, what's going on? You've been somewhere else all night. I sighed, spearing a piece of salmon without eating it. My father wants me back in Milwaukee for 2 weeks. He's planning some kind of leadership restructuring at Taylor Precision. Ah, she nodded, understanding. Immediately. And you're worried he's going to try to pull you back in? Maybe. Or maybe I'm worried I'll be tempted if he does. Sophia had heard enough about my history with Taylor Precision to understand the complicated dynamics at play. Would it be so terrible going back? You saved the company once. Maybe running it is your destiny. That's what I would have said a year ago, I admitted. Taking over Taylor Precision was my goal for so long that it became part of my identity. But now you have options, she completed my thought. Real ones, not just theoretical alternatives to the family business. Exactly. Marcus offered me the Boulder Project today, 3 years minimum building a new AI division from scratch. It's exactly the kind of challenge I came to TechForge for. But you didn't accept immediately, Sophia observed, which means part of you is still holding out for whatever your father might offer. Put so directly, my indecision seemed foolish even to myself. It sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. Not ridiculous, she countered. Human. You spent your whole life working toward one goal, one validation. It's hard to let that go, even when you've found something better. Her insight resonated deeply. Despite all the pain and disappointment Taylor Precision had caused me, some part of me still craved the symbolic victory of returning as triumphant leader, the final vindication after years of being undervalued. The thing is, I said slowly, I'm not sure it would even be satisfying anymore. Running Taylor Precision would mean maintaining what already exists, preserving my grandfather's legacy. The Boulder Project would mean creating something entirely new, something that reflects my own vision. Sounds like you've already made your decision, Sophia pointed out. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. She was right. The excitement I felt thinking about Boulder, the challenge of building a team, establishing a culture, shaping a technological direction, far outweighed any residual desire to return to Taylor Precision. The family business would always be part of my history, but it no longer needed to define my future. The next morning, I arrived at TechForge's offices early, catching Marcus before his schedule filled with meetings. I'd like to accept the Boulder position, I said without preamble as I entered his office, regardless of what happens in Milwaukee next month. His smile was both pleased and knowing. What changed your mind? Nothing changed, I replied truthfully. I just stopped pretending I didn't already know what I wanted. The following weeks passed in a blur of preparation. finalizing the implementation plan for Taylor Precision's new systems, transitioning my current TechForge projects to colleagues, and beginning preliminary work on the Boulder initiative. I would begin officially in that role after returning from Milwaukee, but Marcus had authorized me to start building my team immediately. When I boarded the flight to Wisconsin, I felt a clarity that had eluded me for months. Whatever my father was planning, whatever offer he might make, I had already chosen my path. This visit was about respectfully disentangling my future from Taylor Precision's, not about considering a return. Vanessa met me at the airport, as she had during the crisis 6 months earlier. This time, however, her smile was relaxed, without the tension of those difficult days. "You look good," she observed as we walked to her car. "Seattle agrees with you." "It does," I agreed. "Or maybe it's just having room to grow beyond old expectations. A bit of both, probably." She navigated through the familiar streets of Milwaukee, the skyline a mixture of nostalgic comfort and restrictive memory. "Your dad's been surprisingly tolerable lately. Linda says he's actually listening in meetings, considering other perspectives. Near-death experiences have a way of shifting priorities," I remarked, though I knew the change was more complex than that. My father's transformation had begun when his unquestioning faith in Nathan had been shattered, forcing him to reevaluate other long-held assumptions. "He's excited about your visit," Vanessa continued. "Been talking about it for weeks, apparently. Very mysterious about this restructuring plan he wants to discuss." "Any insider intel you can share?" She shook her head. "He's keeping it close to the vest. Even Linda only knows pieces." My father had arranged for me to stay in the company apartment downtown rather than at his house in the suburbs, a courtesy that acknowledged my independence while keeping me close to the office. The space was impersonal but comfortable, a corporate accommodation typically reserved for visiting executives and important clients. The next morning, I arrived at Taylor Precision prepared for a day of technical meetings about the implementation. To my surprise, my father intercepted me in the lobby. "Jennifer," he greeted me with an awkward half-hug, more physical contact than he'd typically initiate. "Thank you for making the trip on such short notice." "Of course," I replied, falling into step beside him as he led me toward the executive floor. "The team is ready for the system deployment. We should be able to complete the technical installation within the timeframe we discussed." He nodded absently, clearly focused on other concerns. "Before we get into all that, I'd like to speak with you privately. There are some developments you should be aware of." His office was unchanged since my last visit. The same imposing desk, the same view of Milwaukee's skyline, the same photographs of 3 generations of Taylor men on the manufacturing floor. The only new addition was a small framed photo on his desk that hadn't been there before. Me at my college graduation, my mother's arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling. I gestured toward it, surprised. "I haven't seen that picture in years. Found it when I was going through some old files after the heart attack," he explained, almost embarrassed. "Your mother was so proud that day. Said you'd go further than any of us." The memory created an unexpected lump in my throat. She always believed in me. As she should have. He settled into his chair, indicating for me to take a seat across from him. "I've been doing a lot of reflecting these past months, about the company, about my legacy, about the mistakes I've made both professionally and personally." His direct acknowledgement of past errors was startling. Richard Taylor had built his identity on being infallible, decisive, always right. That he could now speak openly about mistakes represented a fundamental shift. "The heart attack was a wake-up call," he continued. "According to my doctors, I should consider reducing my stress levels significantly. They've recommended I step back from day-to-day operations." "Are you retiring?" I asked, unable to imagine my father voluntarily relinquishing control of the company he'd devoted his life to building. "Semi-retiring," he clarified. I've been working with the board to develop a succession plan that would allow me to remain involved as chairman while transferring executive responsibilities to a new CEO. The implication hung in the air between us. This, then, was the leadership restructuring he'd alluded to during our video conference. Despite my clarity about choosing the bolder project, I felt a flutter of the old ambition, the desire to prove myself worthy of leading Taylor Precision. "I see," I said carefully. "And you wanted to discuss this with me because you're the natural successor, Jennifer." He stated it plainly, as if it were obvious. "You saved this company when Nathan and I nearly destroyed it. You've transformed our operations through the TechForge partnership. The board is unanimous in supporting your appointment as CEO should you be interested." Even expecting this offer, hearing it stated so directly sent a shock through me. After years of being overlooked, undervalued, passed over in favor of my brother, my father was finally offering me what I had once wanted most in the world, and I was going to decline it. "I'm honored by the board's confidence," I began carefully, "and by yours. But I've recently accepted a significant new role at TechForge, leading the development of their artificial intelligence division in Boulder." My father's expression shifted from expectation to surprise, then to something more complex. Disappointment mingled with respect. "I see. That's quite an opportunity." "It is," I confirmed. "Building something entirely new, shaping the direction of manufacturing technology for the next decade. It's challenging and exciting in ways I never experienced here." He nodded slowly, processing this information. "And does this new position leave room for your continued involvement with Taylor Precision, even in an advisory capacity?" "I'll fulfill my commitments to the joint venture," I assured him. "But my primary focus will need to be Boulder. The division requires full commitment, especially in its formative stages." Of course. His acceptance was gracious, if tinged with regret. "I shouldn't have assumed you'd be available or interested. It was presumptuous of me." "It wasn't presumptuous," I corrected gently. 6 months ago, this offer would have been everything I ever wanted. But things have changed. I've changed. My goals and priorities have evolved. "Because of how you were treated here," he acknowledged. "Because of my decisions." "Partly," I admitted. "But also because I've discovered there are different ways to find fulfillment, different kinds of success than the one I was raised to pursue." My father was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city skyline. "Your mother would be proud of you," he said finally. "Not for what you've achieved, though that's considerable, but for having the courage to define success on your own terms. That was something she always admired, independence of thought." The unexpected insight into my mother's values, delivered by the man who had often seemed to misunderstand her most deeply, touched me. "Thank you for saying that. If you're not interested in the CEO position," he continued, turning back to face me, "would you at least consider joining the board? We're restructuring governance as part of this transition, establishing independent directors with specific expertise. Your perspective would be invaluable, even at a distance." The request was reasonable, a compromise that would maintain my connection to Taylor Precision without requiring the full commitment of an executive role. It would allow me to influence company direction while focusing primarily on my work at TechForge. "I'd be open to discussing a board position," I agreed. "Depending on the time commitment and expectations." Relief crossed his features. "That's all I can ask. The board meets quarterly, with committee work between sessions. Much of it can be handled remotely, given your location." He hesitated, then added, "And it would give us reason to maintain regular contact, which I would value." The tentative personal admission, so uncharacteristic of my father, revealed the vulnerability beneath his professional demeanor. This wasn't just about securing my expertise for Taylor Precision. It was about preserving a connection that had begun to heal after decades of strain. I'd value that too, I said sincerely. We spent the next hour discussing the proposed board, structure, the qualifications of other potential directors, and the challenges facing Taylor Precision in the coming years. For perhaps the first time, we spoke as colleagues rather than as father and daughter, our conversation unmarked by the power dynamics that had previously defined our relationship. When Linda joined us to begin the technical meetings about the system implementation, she seemed surprised by the comfortable rapport she found. "I've reviewed the deployment schedule," she said, pulling up the project timeline on her tablet. "Everything looks reasonable from our end, though I have some questions about the training program for floor supervisors." We delved into operational details, the three of us collaborating with a smoothness that would have been unimaginable a year earlier. My father listened more than he spoke, deferring to Linda's financial expertise and my technical knowledge without the need to assert control. At the end of the day, as I prepared to leave for my temporary apartment, he walked me to the elevator. "Jennifer," he said as we waited for the doors to open, "I want you to know that while I'm disappointed you won't be taking over as CEO, I understand and respect your decision." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "The Boulder position sounds like an extraordinary opportunity, one that might not have come your way if you'd remained here. Perhaps things worked out as they should, despite my best efforts to control them." The self-deprecating humor, so rare from my usually serious father, surprised a laugh from me. "Maybe so. Dinner tomorrow night?" he suggested. "At Giorgio's, downtown, to celebrate your new position and to discuss the board role further." "I'd like that," I agreed as the elevator arrived. Walking through the Taylor Precision lobby toward the exit, I passed the wall of company photographs that chronicled its history. My grandfather with his first employees, my father taking over. In the 1980s, the expansion of the manufacturing floor in the 1990s. Soon there would be new images documenting the modernization currently underway, the transformation that was securing the company's future. My role in that future would be different than I had once imagined, not as the daily steward of my family's legacy, but as an occasional guide helping navigate technological change. It was a relationship that honored my history without being confined by it, that allowed me to contribute without sacrificing my own growth. Outside, Milwaukee's evening light cast long shadows across the industrial district. A sense of completion settled over me, different from the closure I'd sought when fleeing 6 months earlier. This wasn't an ending, but a realignment, a recalibration of my relationship with Taylor Precision, with my father, and with my own expectations. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "How did it go? Boulder team eager for updates on your timeline." I smiled, typing back, "All good. Board position. Offered and tentatively accepted. Full focus on Boulder confirmed. Details when I return." As I walked toward my rental car, I realized I felt truly liberated for the first time, not from Taylor Precision itself, but from the need for its validation. The company would always be part of my story, a significant chapter in my personal and professional development, but it would no longer be the measure of my success or the limit of my ambition. I had secured a $10 million investment for our family business, then watched my father name my unemployed brother as financial director. That decision had forced me to leave, to find my own path, to discover capabilities I might never have recognized had I remained within the comfortable constraints of the family business. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as disappointments. Sometimes we need to lose what we thought we wanted to discover what we truly need. And sometimes the journey away from home leads us to a better understanding of where we came from and where we're meant to go next. 2 years into my role leading TechForge's AI division in Boulder, I stood at the podium of the International Manufacturing Technology Conference in Chicago, preparing to unveil our latest innovation, an adaptive production system that could recalibrate itself in real time based on material variations and environmental conditions. The auditorium was packed with industry leaders, tech journalists, and potential clients, all eager to see if TechForge's promises of a manufacturing revolution would materialize. Manufacturing has always been about consistency, I began, surveying the attentive faces before me. Reproducing the same results, with the same materials, under the same conditions, thousands or millions of times. But what if the materials aren't consistent? What if conditions change? Traditional manufacturing falters when faced with variability. I clicked to the next slide, showing our system installed on a production line. Until now, tech forges adaptive. Manufacturing intelligence doesn't just work despite variability. It learns from it, adapts to it, even harnesses it to improve outcomes. For the next 30 minutes, I guided the audience through the technical specifications, real-world applications, and impressive efficiency gains our early adopters had experienced. The questions afterward were thoughtful and challenging, exactly what you'd expect from the industry's brightest minds. I fielded each one with confidence born of intimate knowledge. This system had been my focus since arriving in Boulder, the manifestation of a vision I'd been developing since my earliest days at Taylor Precision. As the session concluded to enthusiastic applause, I noticed a familiar figure in the back row. My father, looking thinner but more relaxed than I remembered, nodding with unmistakable pride. We hadn't seen each other in person for nearly 6 months, though we spoke regularly through quarterly board meetings and occasional video calls. His presence at the conference wasn't entirely surprising. Taylor Precision remained an important player in the manufacturing sector, but his attendance at my specific session felt meaningful, a gesture of support that would have been unimaginable 3 years ago. "Impressive presentation," he said as I approached him afterward, attendees clearing out around us. "The applications for precision tooling alone could transform the industry." "That's the idea," I agreed, pleased by his genuine enthusiasm. "How long have you been in Chicago?" "Just arrived this morning. I'm speaking on a panel tomorrow about family business succession." A self-deprecating smile crossed his features. Apparently, I'm now considered an expert on what not to do. The joke at his own expense, another evolution in a man once incapable of acknowledging failure, made me laugh. "Self-awareness looks good on you, Dad. Costs less than heart surgery, that's for sure." He glanced at his watch. "Do you have plans for dinner? I'd like to discuss something with you if you have time." Dinner was arranged at a steakhouse overlooking the Chicago River, the kind of establishment where business deals had been negotiated for generations. As we settled into our booth, I noticed my father seemed nervous, unusual for a man who prided himself on unflappable confidence. "Everything okay?" I asked as the waiter poured our wine. "You seem preoccupied." He nodded, taking a deliberate sip before answering. "I've been considering some significant changes, both personally and professionally. I wanted to discuss them with you before finalizing anything." My curiosity piqued. "What kind of changes?" "I'm selling the house in Brookfield," he said, referring to the suburban mansion where I'd grown up. "It's too large for one person and, frankly, holds too many complicated memories." The news was unexpected but not shocking. The house had been my mother's project primarily, her taste evident in every room. After her death, my father had maintained it out of inertia rather than attachment. "Where will you live?" "I've purchased a condo downtown near the river. Something more manageable, closer to the office for the days I still go in." He hesitated, then added, "And I've been seeing someone for about 8 months now." This was genuinely surprising. Since my mother's death, my father had shown no interest in romantic relationships, channeling all his energy into the business. "That's wonderful," I said, meaning it. "Anyone I know?" "Margaret Chen. She's on the board of the Milwaukee Symphony. We met at a fundraiser last year." The name was vaguely familiar. A widow in her early 60s, if I recalled correctly, with a background in arts administration. Not at all the type of woman I would have expected my father to be attracted to, which perhaps indicated healthy growth on his part. "She sounds lovely. I'd like to meet her sometime." She'll be joining us for coffee after dinner, actually. He looked almost boyishly nervous. If that's all right with you. The consideration, asking my permission rather than simply arranging it, represented another shift in our relationship dynamics. Of course it's all right. I'm looking forward to it. He relaxed visibly, the conversation turning to safer topics. The conference schedule, mutual acquaintances in the industry, updates on Taylor Precision's operations. It wasn't until our entrees arrived that he circled back to his original purpose. The other change I wanted to discuss is more significant, he said, setting down his fork. I'm considering selling my controlling interest in Taylor Precision. The statement landed like a stone dropping into still water, ripples of implication expanding outward. For 3 generations, the Taylor family had maintained majority ownership of the company. My grandfather's insistence on keeping control had survived economic downturns, acquisition attempts, and the temptation of easy profit. That my father would consider breaking this fundamental tradition was almost unthinkable. To whom? I managed, trying to process the magnitude of what he was suggesting. That's what I wanted to discuss with you. He leaned forward slightly. Gloria Patterson approached me about Cartwright Industries acquiring a majority stake. They've been impressed with the company's performance since the restructuring, and they see strategic value in integrating our precision manufacturing capabilities more fully into their operations. My mind raced through implications. Cartwright was a reputable company with a strong track record of maintaining the integrity of their acquisitions. The partnership had been productive for both entities. Still, the thought of Taylor Precision, existing without Taylor family control, created a strange, hollow feeling in my chest. What about the employees? The Milwaukee operations? Protected, according to Gloria's proposal. Cartwright values the expertise of our workforce and the efficiency of our modernized facilities. They've committed to maintaining the Milwaukee plant as the center of precision operations for at least 10 years, with significant penalties for any deviation. His thoroughness suggested he'd been considering this for some time, working through the ethical implications as well as the financial ones. And you're comfortable with this? Ending 3 generations of family ownership? He was quiet for a moment, considering his response. I used to believe that preserving family control was the most important aspect of my responsibility to the company. The past 3 years have taught me otherwise. He met my gaze directly. What matters is ensuring the company's continued success, its ability to provide stable employment, its contribution to the industry. Cartwright offers the best path to those outcomes, especially given... He trailed off. Given what? I prompted. Given that you won't be returning to lead Taylor Precision? He completed. And Nathan is obviously not an option. The simple acknowledgement that the company's future couldn't depend on family succession revealed how far my father had come from the rigid thinking that had characterized most of his career. Have you had any contact with Nathan? I asked, carefully. My brother remained a painful subject, his betrayal still raw despite the passage of time. Sporadic emails, my father admitted. He's in Thailand now, teaching English and, according to him, finding himself. He asked for money last month, not for himself, he claimed, but for a local school he's involved with. Did you send it? No. The single syllable contained complex emotions, regret, disappointment, resolve. I offered to donate directly to the school if he provided legitimate contact information. He never responded. Nathan's patterns hadn't changed then. The same manipulative tactics, the same expectation that family would bail him out regardless of his actions. I think you made the right call, I said gently. He nodded, then refocused on the original topic. Regarding Cartwright's offer, I wanted your input before proceeding, as a board member and as my daughter. The decision affects your inheritance, obviously, though I've arranged for you to receive fair compensation regardless. The consideration was touching but unnecessary. Dad, My financial future is secure. I'm more concerned about whether this is truly what you want. Taylor Precision has been your life's work. Part of my life's work, he corrected. And perhaps not the most important part, though it took me too long to realize that. He took another sip of wine. The heart attack forced me to reconsider many things, including what I want from my remaining years. Running the company, even in a reduced capacity, no longer brings me the satisfaction it once did. I'd like to explore other interests while I'm still able. Like the symphony? I asked with a small smile, thinking of Margaret Chen. Among other things, he acknowledged, a hint of color rising in his cheeks. I've been taking piano lessons again, and considering some travel. Margaret has family in Singapore she visits regularly. The image of my workaholic father pursuing music and international travel was endearing in its unexpectedness. It sounds like you're creating a meaningful next chapter. I'm trying, he agreed. Something I should have done years ago, if I'm honest. Your mother always wanted to travel more, to explore interests beyond the business. I was too focused on Taylor Precision to see the value in that balance. The reference to my mother, delivered without the usual tension that had characterized discussions of her since her death, indicated healing I hadn't realized my father had achieved. Mom would be happy to see you embracing new experiences, I said softly. He nodded, emotion briefly tightening his features. So, the Cartwright offer? What are your thoughts? I considered the question seriously, weighing sentimentality against practicality. If the employee protections are solid, and if you truly feel ready to step away, I think it could be the right move. Cartwright has been a good partner, and Gloria. Patterson has demonstrated genuine commitment to Taylor Precision's core values. Relief crossed his face. That's my assessment as well. I'll move forward with the negotiations then. He hesitated before adding, There's one additional aspect of the deal I haven't mentioned. Cartwright's acquisition offer includes a provision for TechForge to maintain privileged access to Taylor Precision's manufacturing capabilities for your AI implementations. Gloria was quite insistent on it, actually. The strategic thinking impressed me. Gloria ensuring that her son's company maintained advantageous manufacturing partnerships while acquiring a key supplier. That's a beneficial arrangement for both TechForge and Taylor Precision. I thought you'd see it that way. He smiled, some of his old shrewdness returning. Gloria Patterson is quite the businesswoman. Reminds me of you, actually. The comparison, delivered as a straightforward compliment rather than with the reservations that would have accompanied it in the past, warmed me unexpectedly. Speaking of TechForge, my father continued, your presentation today was remarkable. The practical applications of your adaptive system are even more extensive than I initially realized. We're just scratching the surface, I agreed. The team in Boulder has been extraordinary, creative, dedicated, willing to challenge assumptions. The culture we've built there has exceeded my expectations. Culture is crucial, he acknowledged. Something I didn't fully appreciate until recent years. Building the right team matters more than any individual decision. That's been my philosophy in Boulder from day one, I explained. Hire exceptional people, create conditions where they can thrive, then give them the autonomy to innovate. The results speak for themselves. They certainly do. Marcus must be pleased with the division's performance. We've exceeded targets for 2 consecutive quarters, I confirmed. There's talk of expanding the team significantly next year, possibly opening a second development center in Austin. Would that mean relocation for you? I shook my head. I'd remain in Boulder, overseeing both locations. The Austin facility would focus on hardware integration while we maintain software development. In Colorado. Sounds like TechForge is positioning you for continued advancement, he observed. Exactly as you deserve. The genuine pride in his voice, untinged by the competitive edge that had often colored his professional assessments in the past, felt like the culmination of a long journey toward mutual respect. Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Margaret Chen, exactly as scheduled for after-dinner coffee. She was elegant and warm, her intelligence evident in sharp observational, humor and thoughtful questions about my work. Watching her interaction with my father, the easy familiarity, the respectful attention each paid to the other's opinions, I saw what healthy partnership could look like for him. So different from the dynamic he'd shared with my mother, which had been loving but hierarchical, with my father as undisputed decision-maker in all matters beyond the domestic sphere. Jennifer has been telling me about the expansion plans for her division, my father explained to Margaret as she joined. Our conversation about TechForge, potentially adding an Austin development center next year. How exciting, Margaret replied with genuine interest. I visited Austin last spring for a conference on arts funding. Vibrant city, though the summer heat is rather intense. Do you enjoy living in Boulder? The simple personal question about my preferences, my quality of life rather than just professional accomplishments, highlighted the difference in conversational dynamics with Margaret present. She humanized our interaction, drawing out aspects of experience that my father and I typically glossed over in our focus on business matters. I love it, I answered honestly. The mountains, the outdoor culture, the mix of academic and technological innovation. It's become home in ways I didn't anticipate when I first moved there. Home is where you can breathe most freely, Margaret observed. It took me years to realize that might not be where you were raised or where your family expects you to be. The insight resonated deeply. Boulder had indeed become the place where I could breathe freely, where my contributions were valued on their merits rather than measured against family expectations. As the evening concluded and we prepared to part ways, my father surprised me with an uncharacteristic embrace. I'm proud of you, Jennifer, he said quietly. Not just for your professional achievements, impressive as they are, but for having the courage to forge your own path. That takes a special kind of strength. The words, so longed for in my youth and young adulthood, washed over me with unexpected emotional impact. Thank you, Dad. That means a lot. I'll keep you updated on the Cartwright negotiations, he promised as we separated. And please let me know when you'll be in Milwaukee next. Margaret and I would love to have you over to the new place. I will, I agreed, watching as they walked away together, my father's hand resting lightly on Margaret's back as he guided her through the restaurant's exit. Back in my hotel room, I found myself reflecting on the evening's revelations. My father, selling his controlling interest in Taylor Precision, a new relationship, piano lessons, international travel, each development representing a profound shift from the man who had dominated my childhood and early career, rigid, work-obsessed, resistant to change. The transformation reminded me that growth wasn't limited by age or circumstance, that people could evolve in surprising ways given the right catalyst. For my father, that catalyst had been a combination of crisis and loss, Nathan's betrayal, the company's near collapse, his own health scare, followed by the unexpected gift of a second chance. My phone chimed with a message from Sophia back, in Boulder. How did the presentation go? Conference buzz says you knocked it out of the park. I smiled, typing back. Went well. Big news, though. Had dinner with my dad. He's selling Taylor Precision to Cartwright Industries. Her response came quickly. Whoa, end of an era. How do you feel about it? The question gave me pause. How did I feel about the family company moving beyond family control? About the definitive closing of the door on what had once been my expected future? Surprisingly okay, I replied after consideration. Maybe even relieved. It feels like the final step in a healthy separation, for both me and my dad. Freedom, Sophia texted back. For both of you. Her simple assessment captured the essence perfectly. My father was freeing himself from the burden of maintaining dynastic control, from the weight of continuation for its own sake. And I was being freed from the last vestiges of obligation, the lingering sense that someday I might need to return to fulfill family expectations. The next morning, I arrived early at the conference center to prepare for a panel discussion on integrating AI into traditional manufacturing environments. As I reviewed my notes in a quiet corner of the speaker prep room, Gloria Patterson appeared beside me, immaculate as always in a tailored suit, her silver hair arranged in its characteristic elegant style. "Jennifer," she greeted me warmly. "Excellent presentation yesterday. Your adaptive system is exactly the kind of innovation we hoped might emerge from the TechForge-Taylor partnership." "Thank you," I replied, setting aside my notes. "I understand you've been discussing a more permanent arrangement with my father." She nodded, taking the seat beside me. "Richard approached me about the possibility several weeks ago. We've been exploring whether it might serve both companies' interests." Her direct approach, free of pretense or manipulation, was refreshing in an industry often characterized by strategic ambiguity. "I wanted to speak with you personally to ensure the potential acquisition wouldn't create any discomfort given your unique position. I appreciate the consideration," I said sincerely, "but I support the direction if it's what my father wants. Taylor Precision will benefit from Cartwright's resources and market position. And your continued involvement as a board member? Would that remain comfortable for you if ownership changes hands?" I considered the question carefully. I believe it would. My connection to Taylor Precision has evolved into something more professional than personal. I value contributing my expertise, particularly regarding technological integration, regardless of who holds controlling interest. Gloria studied me for a moment, her sharp eyes assessing. "You've achieved remarkable clarity about your relationship to the family business. Not everyone manages that transition so gracefully." "It wasn't always graceful," I admitted with a small laugh. "But time and distance provide perspective that's impossible when you're in the middle of it all." "Indeed." She glanced at her watch, a subtle, expensive timepiece that complemented her understated elegance. "One additional matter I wanted to discuss. The acquisition, if finalized, would create new strategic opportunities for collaboration between Cartwright, Taylor Precision, and TechForge. Marcus and I have been discussing the potential for a more formal alliance focused on next-generation manufacturing technology. The business implications were intriguing. What kind of alliance are you envisioning?" "A joint development initiative, combining Cartwright's market reach, Taylor's precision engineering expertise, and TechForge's technological innovation." Her expression became more animated as she outlined the concept. "Manufacturing is at an inflection point, Jennifer. Companies that successfully integrate advanced AI with traditional production processes will define the industry's future. Between our three organizations, we have all the components needed to lead that transformation." The vision was compelling and aligned perfectly with the direction I'd been pursuing in Boulder. "It's an exciting possibility. I'd be interested in exploring it further once the acquisition is finalized." "Excellent." Gloria stood, preparing to depart for her own panel session. "We'll arrange a proper meeting with the relevant teams in the coming weeks. And Jennifer—" She paused, something almost maternal flickering across her typically businesslike demeanor. "For what it's worth, I believe your father's decision represents growth rather than retreat. Recognizing when to transition leadership is one of the most challenging aspects of building something that outlasts you." The insight echoed my own conclusions from the previous evening. "I think so too." After Gloria departed, I returned to my panel preparation with renewed energy. The potential alliance she had outlined represented an evolution of what I'd been building in Boulder, not just a single division's innovation, but a coordinated transformation across multiple industry leaders. 3 years ago, when my father had named Nathan financial director despite my securing the critical investment, I had felt devalued and disposable. The shock and betrayal had driven me away from Taylor Precision, forcing me to forge a new path at TechForge. Now, through an ironic twist of circumstance, that path had led me to a position of greater influence than I might have achieved had I remained within the family business. Instead of merely preserving and incrementally improving an existing operation, I was helping shape the future of an entire industry, bringing technological revolution to manufacturing processes that had remained fundamentally unchanged for decades. The panel moderator appeared, indicating it was time to take our places on stage. As I gathered my materials and followed him toward the auditorium, I reflected on how completely my professional landscape had transformed since that painful day in my father's office. I had secured a $10 million investment for our family business, then watched my father name my unemployed brother as financial director. That devastating moment, what had felt like the ultimate professional betrayal, had actually been the catalyst for my greatest growth, pushing me beyond the boundaries I had unconsciously accepted, forcing me to reimagine what success might look like outside the narrow definition I'd inherited. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives, viewed in retrospect, reveal themselves as necessary disruptions, painful but essential redirections toward paths we might never have chosen voluntarily. My father's misguided decision had been precisely such a disruption, shattering my expectations but ultimately liberating me from limitations I hadn't recognized were constraining me. As I took my place on the panel, facing an audience eager to understand how artificial intelligence would reshape their industry, I silently thanked the younger version of myself who had found the courage to walk away, to rebuild, to create something entirely new from the ashes of disappointment. Her pain had been real, her anger justified, but her resilience had transformed that painful moment into the foundation for a future beyond anything she could have imagined. 5 years after my departure from Taylor Precision, I stood on the stage at the Global Technology Innovation Summit in San Francisco, accepting the Transformative Leadership Award for the work my team and I had accomplished at TechForge. The adaptive manufacturing system we'd developed in Boulder had revolutionized production processes across multiple industries, from automotive to medical devices, creating efficiencies that industry analysts had once declared impossible. This recognition belongs to the extraordinary team at TechForge who dared to challenge manufacturing's most fundamental assumptions, I said, holding the sleek glass award, and to the visionary partners at Taylor Precision and Cartwright Industries, who provided the testing grounds where theory could become practical reality. From my vantage point on stage, I could see Marcus Patterson in the front row, his proud smile reminiscent of a parent at a graduation ceremony. Beside him sat my father, now fully retired from Taylor Precision following the Cartwright acquisition 3 years earlier. He had flown in specifically for this ceremony, bringing Margaret with him, now his wife of 2 years. They made a striking couple, both elegant in their 60s, both embarking on unexpected second chapters in life. The formal proceedings concluded with a reception in the hotel's grand ballroom, where industry leaders mingled with innovators and press representatives. I moved through conversations with practiced ease, discussing technical details with engineers one moment and business strategy with executives the next. "There she is," called a familiar voice. I turned to find Gloria Patterson approaching, champagne flute in hand. The woman of the hour. "Hardly," I demurred, accepting her congratulatory kiss on the cheek. "Just fortunate to work with extraordinary people." "False modesty doesn't suit you, Jennifer," she chided gently. "Your vision drove this innovation from concept to market changing. Reality. Own it." Gloria had become something of a mentor since the Taylor Precision acquisition, her direct manner and strategic brilliance providing guidance as I navigated increasingly complex leadership responsibilities. At 72, she remained a formidable presence in the business world, recently transitioning from CEO to chairwoman of Cartwright Industries, with plans to fully retire within 2 years. "I hear the Austin Center is exceeding projections," she remarked, referring to TechForge's second development facility, now in its 3rd year of operation. "Significantly," I confirmed. "The hardware integration team there has accelerated our implementation timeline by nearly 8 months. Excellent. And the Joint Development Initiative? The alliance Gloria had proposed 5 years earlier, connecting Cartwright, Taylor Precision, and TechForge in a coordinated approach to next-generation manufacturing, had evolved into a formal development consortium now involving 12 companies across multiple sectors. The consortium's collective patent portfolio has doubled in the past 18 months, I reported. The combinatorial approach is yielding innovations none of us could have achieved individually. She nodded. Satisfaction, evident in her expression. Precisely as we envisioned. Her gaze shifted to something over my shoulder. Ah, and here comes your father. I'll leave you two to celebrate. My father approached as Gloria departed, his gait slightly slower than it had once been, but his posture still commanding. At 68, he remained physically fit, though his formerly dark hair had given way entirely to distinguished silver. Congratulations, Jennifer, he said warmly, embracing me with genuine affection, a gesture that had become more natural between us over the years. A well-deserved recognition. Thank you for coming, I replied, truly touched by his presence. How was your flight? Smooth enough. Margaret slept through most of it. He gestured toward his wife, who was engaged in animated conversation with Marcus across the room. She's been working too hard on the symphony's fundraising gala. Exhausted. Herself. She looks wonderful, I observed, noting Margaret's elegant appearance and energetic demeanor despite the claimed exhaustion. She is wonderful, my father agreed with unabashed admiration. Reminds me daily that there's more to life than balance sheets and production quotas. He paused, his expression growing more serious. Speaking of which, I visited the Milwaukee plant yesterday before flying out. The timing surprised me. Any particular reason? Linda asked me to consult on a legacy issue with the pension program, but really, I think she just wanted me to see how well everything's functioning under Cartwright's ownership. A mixture of emotions crossed his features: pride, nostalgia, perhaps a touch of melancholy. The modernization has continued impressively. Production volumes are up nearly 40% since the acquisition, with the same core workforce. That was always the goal, I reminded him gently. Growth that benefited everyone, not just shareholders. He nodded, acknowledging the philosophical shift that had occurred in his thinking over the years. It's strange to walk those floors as a visitor rather than an owner, he admitted. But satisfying, too, seeing something you built continue to thrive even as it evolves beyond your original vision. The sentiment resonated deeply. I had experienced similar emotions watching my initial work in Boulder expand and transform through the contributions of talented team members, each bringing their unique perspectives and innovations. That's the truest form of legacy, I suggested. Not controlling something indefinitely, but creating something with enough inherent strength to grow beyond your direct influence. Wisdom beyond your years, he said with a small smile. Though, I suppose at this point you've earned every insight through direct experience. Our conversation was interrupted by the approach of a journalist from Manufacturing Technology Review, requesting a brief interview about the award and TechForge's future directions. My father smoothly excused himself, promising to reconnect. Later at the family dinner we had planned following the reception, the interview flowed easily, covering ground I had discussed many times before: our technological approach, implementation challenges, future development priorities. As we concluded, the journalist asked a question I hadn't anticipated. Given your background with Taylor Precision and now your success at TechForge, what advice would you give to others navigating family business dynamics while pursuing their own professional path? The question gave me pause, requiring reflection, on a journey that had begun with pain and betrayal, but evolved into something far more nuanced and ultimately rewarding. I would say that family businesses contain unique challenges precisely because the professional and personal dimensions cannot be fully separated, I began carefully. The decisions made in boardrooms ripple through holiday dinners, and childhood dynamics inevitably influence workplace interactions. I glanced across the room, where my father was now engaged in conversation with Marcus, both men laughing at some shared observation. But I would also suggest that the most destructive patterns occur when family members, and particularly family leaders, confuse loyalty with competence, tradition with strategy, or control with success. The healthiest family businesses recognize that sometimes the greatest contribution one generation can make to the next is creating space for independent growth, even if that means stepping aside or letting go entirely. The journalist nodded, apparently satisfied with the response. And in your case, it seems that independent path led to even greater success than might have been possible within the family business structure. Different success, I corrected, gently. Not necessarily greater. Running Taylor Precision would have been challenging and rewarding in its own way. Leading TechForge's AI division offered different opportunities, different challenges. The point isn't that one path was superior to the other, but that I found the right path for my specific talents and aspirations. After the reception concluded, our small family group, my father and Margaret, Marcus and I, gathered at a renowned restaurant overlooking the bay. The setting sun cast golden light across the water, creating a tranquil backdrop for our celebration. To Jennifer, Marcus proposed, raising his glass once we were settled, whose vision and leadership have transformed not just TechForge, but an entire industry approach to manufacturing technology. And to connections that transcend traditional boundaries, added my father, joining the toast. Family and professional, past and present, competition and collaboration. The sentiment captured perfectly the complex web of relationships that had emerged from what had once been a simple family business story. My father and Marcus, once representing competing claims on my professional loyalty, had developed genuine respect and even friendship. Taylor Precision and TechForge, initially positioned as my past versus my future, had become integrated partners in technological innovation. I have news to share, Marcus announced as our main courses arrived. News that connects directly to our toast. He glanced at me with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The board approved it this morning, but I wanted to tell you in person before making it official. Tell me what? I asked, curiosity piqued by his uncharacteristic hesitation. I'm stepping down as CEO of TechForge next quarter, he revealed, moving to executive chairman, focusing on strategic direction rather than daily operations. The announcement was unexpected, despite Marcus being in his early 60s, an age when many executives began considering succession. TechForge was very much his creation, his vision brought to life through determination and innovation. That's a significant transition, I observed carefully. Is this something you've been planning for a while? About a year, he confirmed. The company has reached a scale and maturity that requires different leadership for its next phase, and I've been feeling the pull toward broader industry initiatives rather than operational management. My father nodded with understanding. The same realization I came to, though perhaps with more external prompting, he acknowledged, referencing his heart attack. There comes a point when continuing to hold the reins tightly serves neither the organization nor yourself. Exactly, Marcus agreed. Which brings me to the second part of my announcement. He turned to me directly. The board is unanimously recommending you as my successor, Jennifer. We believe you're the right leader to guide TechForge through its next evolution. The offer landed with unexpected emotional impact. CEO of TechForge, a company I had joined as a refugee from family business dynamics, now potentially mine to lead in its entirety. The symmetry was striking. The position I had once expected to hold at Taylor Precision now offered in a different context, with a different company, through a path I could never have anticipated. I'm honored, I said sincerely, collecting my thoughts. And somewhat surprised, though perhaps I shouldn't be. You shouldn't, Marcus confirmed with a smile. You've been on the leadership track since you arrived. The success of the AI division accelerated the timeline, but this has been the direction for some time. My father reached across the table to squeeze my hand briefly. Congratulations, Jennifer. Well-deserved recognition of everything you've built. Margaret, who had been quietly observing the exchange, offered her own perspective. How wonderful to see genuine merit rewarded. In my experience on nonprofit boards, succession too often defaults to seniority rather than identifying the most capable leadership. There's a formal process, of course, Marcus continued. External candidates will be considered for due diligence, but the board's preference is clear, assuming you're interested in the position. I am, I replied, the certainty solidifying as I spoke. Very interested, though I'd want to ensure continuity for the AI division and the consortium initiatives. Marcus nodded. We'd work through those details during the transition period. I'd remain actively involved as executive chairman, particularly with external partnerships. As the conversation shifted to implementation questions, timing, announcement strategy, transitional leadership for my current division, I found myself reflecting on the strange circularity of my professional journey. 5 years earlier, I had declined my father's offer to lead Taylor Precision, choosing instead to focus on building something new at TechForge. Now, that decision had led to an opportunity that exceeded what either path alone might have offered. Later that evening, after Marcus and Margaret had returned to their hotels, my father and I took a short walk along the waterfront. The night air was cool and crisp, the lights of the Bay Bridge creating a gleaming pathway across the dark water. CEO of TechForge, he mused, hands in his pockets as we strolled. A remarkable achievement, Jennifer. One entirely earned through your own merit, not inherited or granted through family connection. There's irony there, I acknowledged. 5 years ago, I turned down leadership of Taylor Precision to pursue what seemed like a narrower but more independent path. Now that path has led to a broader opportunity than I might have had otherwise. Life rarely follows linear progressions, he observed, particularly when we have the courage to take unexpected turns. We paused at a viewpoint overlooking the illuminated city skyline, the wind carrying the faint sound of foghorns in the distance. Do you ever regret selling Taylor Precision? I asked, a question that had lingered unasked for years. Ending family ownership after 3 generations? He considered the question thoughtfully before answering. Not regret, no. Nostalgia sometimes, especially when I visit the plant or encounter longtime employees. But the company is thriving. The workers are secure. The innovations your grandfather valued are continuing. He turned to face me directly. And you found your own path, one that proved better suited to your talents and aspirations than what I had narrowly imagined for you. The simple acknowledgement, delivered without qualification or defensive justification, represented how profoundly our relationship had evolved over the years. I want you to know, he continued, that watching you build your career at TechForge, seeing the leader you've become on your own terms, has been one of the great joys of my later years. Far more meaningful than any continuation of Taylor family control could have been. The words touched me deeply, carrying the weight of a journey we had both traveled, from rigid expectations and painful disappointment to mutual respect and genuine appreciation. Thank you for saying that, I replied softly. It means a great deal coming from you. I only wish your mother could have seen it, he added, a hint of wistfulness in his tone. She always said you would forge your own path, even when I couldn't see beyond the boundaries of what I'd inherited and built. She was insightful that way, I agreed, remembering my mother's quiet confidence in my abilities even when they diverged from family traditions. We resumed walking, comfortable silence settling between us as we made our way back toward our hotels. The path ahead, professionally for me, personally for both of us, contained challenges and opportunities neither of us could fully anticipate. But we moved toward that future unburdened by the weight of unfulfilled expectations or unhealed wounds, each finding unexpected fulfillment by releasing the narrow definitions of success we had once accepted without question. I had secured a $10 million investment for our family business, then watched my father name my unemployed brother as financial director. That moment of profound disappointment had set in motion a journey neither of us could have imagined, a journey that had ultimately led to greater growth, deeper connection, and more meaningful accomplishment than continuing along expected paths might ever have allowed. Sometimes what initially feels like rejection becomes redirection toward something better suited to who we truly are. Sometimes closed doors don't represent failure, but invitation to explore rooms we might never otherwise have entered. And sometimes, when we have the courage to walk away from situations that diminish our worth, we create space for unexpected possibilities that affirm and expand it. As the San Francisco night enveloped us in its misty embrace, I felt profound gratitude for the painful catalyst that had launched me beyond familiar limitations into a future entirely my own. Yet somehow, through life's strange alchemy, more deeply connected to my origins than I could have imagined possible. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.